WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
Emergency evacuations underway at Piney Point due to what officials warn is an imminent collapse of a massive leaking gypsum stack in Manatee County. The latest developments beginning now on WFLA Now. Hey folks, JB Buno alongside Aid on your sides. Evan Donovan here on the right side of your screen. We're here to inform you, here to let you know the very latest is on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and here to answer your questions. We're going to be looking for your hashtag Hey Evan, hashtag Hey JB questions here in the Facebook Live comment section. We're live on the WFLA app, WFLA.com, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook. So we'll be monitoring your comments here for what is a very serious situation, Evan, unfolding here in Manatee County.
It certainly is, and we have lots of people available to answer your questions. So please make sure that you hashtag them. It not only helps us draw attention to them, but we can put them on the screen for other viewers to see them and obviously give you some recognition. So ask whatever questions you have and make your whatever comments to hashtag JB, hashtag Hey JB, hashtag Hey Evan. We've got Nico Clemens live in the field at this Piney Point wastewater treatment facility. Or not treatment facility, but the retention pond there. And we've got Matt Pasek, who is a professor of geosciences at the University of South Florida. He can answer some of our questions about why this water might be dangerous if it was to leak, or more of it, I should say, to leak into the nearby waterways. And so if you have any questions for those folks, Nico, again, out in the field at that location near the homes that have been evacuated, and Matt Pasek, the USF professor of geosciences. So let us know what you want us to ask them. JB?
Let's start with Nico Clemens, who's there live at Piney Point. Hey there, Nico. What's the latest and what are we hearing? We know a 2 o'clock press conference is beginning here in a little more than half an hour from now.
Yeah, JB, so, things took a complete turn several hours ago. So this is US 41, right? We're not too far from the faux gypsum stack, but you see the FHP trooper down there in the cone. So earlier today, everyone could drive up and down US 41. There was no problem. We know they issued that emergency evacuation in the neighborhoods and surrounding neighborhoods and the businesses. Well, now they've issued that emergency complete evacuation in the entire Piney Point area. And so you can't even go up and down US 41 here at 113th Street East and all the way in Hillsborough County. They've issued, or they've blocked off the road from here all the way up to Hillsborough County. And so right now, a lot of cars are trying to get through, or they can't, so they have to turn around. We just heard one guy who he says he can't even get home because FHP, Manatee County, they've blocked US 41 here. And so again, this happened earlier today where they've issued that complete emergency evacuation order because they fear, like you all just mentioned, that leak in the gypsum stack not too far from where we are is very imminent, and it could go, and that wall could collapse as soon as, we're not sure when, but they're really fearful. They're very fearful that could happen anytime soon. So that's why they wanted to get people out of here off of US 41. Again, they had that emergency evacuation yesterday in part of the area, part of Manatee County, but they've extended that and expanded that, a complete emergency evacuation in the Piney Point area. So, Corey, let's go over here. So you see cars, they're slowly trying to get up and down US 41, but they're starting to find out, hey, we can't go this way because, and people may not be aware or may not know what's really going on. We've already had a few people come up to us asking us, hey, what's going on? Why are you all out here? Why do we see state police? What's going on? So lots of confusion, and that's why we're here to let people know that, yes, right now there's a complete emergency evacuation order of the Piney Point area. Cars are turning around on US 41. That came out at 11 this morning. 11:01, people started to get alerts to their phones. And so, JB, right now, you mentioned that 2 o'clock press conference, we should learn more. We have Allison Henning, she's on the way there right now. But right now, in this area, people are leaving their homes, or some people can't even get home here on US 41. So that's the latest here in Manatee County. Again, they're fearful that, of course, they were fearful yesterday. They've been, concerned throughout the last several days, but this morning they were really urgent, and they were trying to get everyone out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Nico, let me ask you. I mean, you got that an alert on your phone for you and Corey, our photographer, our photojournalist who's with you in the area. You got an alert on your phone, and then you guys got pushed back. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. So originally they were going to do the press conference. They were going to update the press down the road here, not too far from where we're standing. So when they pushed out that alert, when the concerns grew, they actually moved us down, say maybe about a mile or so further back here on US 41. So again, right here is 113th Street East is where they pushed us all the way back to. But we were going to go further down, which is, I guess, closer to the faux gypsum stack and that reservoir back there. But again, they were just concerned, and they weren't sure if that wall was going to collapse, then or how soon. So they wanted to just make sure, push us back. So we were going to be here, actually, Evan. We were going to have the press conference literally across the street from where I'm standing right now. But then they pushed it back, or they moved the location again to another location where Allison Henning is heading to right now.
Yeah, again, and the officials using that word imminent, possible collapse there at Piney Point. All right, Nico, we'll say thank you and goodbye to you for right now. I want to just kind of go over some comments from. There was an email yesterday and some confusion within our viewership, actually, after this morning's newscast about what we were reporting. DEP sent out an email saying that the water that's in the Piney Point facility is slightly acidic. I'm going to read it to you. It's again, this is the press secretary for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection said the water being discharged from Piney Point is mixed seawater, primarily salt water from the Port Manatee Dredge Project, mixed with legacy process water, process water being from phosphate mining, and stormwater runoff or rainfall. The water quality meets quality standards for marine waters with the exception of pH, total phosphorus, total nitrogen, and total ammonia nitrogen. And this is the key part. It is slightly acidic, but not at a level that is expected to be of concern, nor is it expected to be toxic. That was from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. We reported that this morning, obviously, as that came to us late last evening, I should say. That caused some confusion because why all the fuss if this water isn't toxic? And I think that's what we're going to have our next guest answer, questions like that in just a moment. But JB, I know you want to. Yeah,
we have some comments that are coming in. And again, we're being very mindful of all the questions that are coming in here in the Facebook Live comment section using hashtag HeyEvan, hashtag HeyJB. Shar and Alan McCrary here, hashtag HeyEvan. What is the absolute worst scenario? Nobody has answered. How many miles of how many mile radius could be impacted here? I think that's a perfect segue here to our next guest here.
Yeah, and Sharondalan, that is a great question. The reason the reason why I was actually going to ask our next guest about that question is because I got the DEP official who wrote that email on the phone earlier today and said to them exactly that question I asked. What is the worst case scenario here? Because people I don't think understand, is this water toxic? Is it dangerous? What happens if you drink it? Is it going to get into the local waterway or into our drinking water? So let me just go on the record with you and tell you that DEP said that effectively the way it works is that the water inside there is not toxic in and of itself, but that if it mixes with other waters in nearby waterways and in this local area, that it could cause dangerous changes to the ecosystem. I asked her, what is the worst case scenario here? And she said she doesn't know. And I think that's part of the problem here is they don't know exactly what all the problems might be if this water were to reach nearby waterways. She said it has elevated levels of phosphorus and nitrogens. Those nutrients shouldn't enter the natural waterways. But she did point out it's not like it's toxic sludge. There are fish and turtles that hang out in this water. It's just a matter of what might happen after it mixes with nearby freshwater. It could cause algal blooms or fish kills or damage those natural ecosystems. So I think that's hopefully the short answer to your question, Sharon DeLund. And let's bring in Matt Pasek, who is a professor of geosciences at USF. Matt, thanks so much for joining us, especially here on this Saturday afternoon. So, Matt, I know that you do some space science. You're sort of all over the place in terms of your expertise in science, but you do have a specific expertise with phosphorus. Tell us what's so dangerous about this water.
So phosphorus is a vital element for life as we know it. It is an important part of agriculture. In fact, this whole big waste field that we have here is a final product of the fertilizer industry. And so effectively what we have is a large supply of what is a important nutrient that we use to grow crops and everything like that has just been sitting there. And at this point is going to enter the waterways one way or another. And as a result, organisms that live in Tampa Bay and sort of in the immediate vicinity of the coast will probably start growing very rapidly because this nutrient is usually in such limited supply that these organisms will have a chance to suddenly enhance growth rates very rapidly. And as a result, will probably cause things like algal blooms, which end up killing off fish and doing other hazards to the ecosystem as a result. So it's effectively too much of a good thing in that way. And it is a bad thing that it is too much of a good thing in this case, not just a facetious way of saying as much.
That's a great way of putting it there, because, and I think that puts a little bit more color into the viewer's eyes about why it's not necessarily toxic in and of itself, but that it has nutrients in it that can cause some dangers down the road, or down the water, I should say. We do have some questions coming in from viewers, which I think are sort of get to the heart of what we're wondering here. And while we have you, want to go ahead and get to them. So JB, what do we have?
Yeah, everybody looking for, again, those hashtags on your screen, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan, hashtag HeyMatthew here. And let's get to some of the questions we have, and just comments in general. Dottie Green here, hashtag JB, why haven't they taken care of this a long time ago? They knew this was a possibility, and perhaps that's something that Matt wants to offer a comment on here in a second. Let's get to some of the others here. This is something that an interesting question we might have to look into. Desiree McGuire here, hashtag HeyJB, what about the jail that is on Piney Point Road? Will they be evacuating that too? That's something that we might have to be looking into here. And how about just a moment ago from Patty here, hashtag HeyEvan, is the evacuation due to flooding or danger of toxins? We can't underestimate the environmental disaster that will come when millions of gallons go into the Tampa Bay.
Let's leave that one on the screen right there for a second, JB, because there's a couple things I want to dissect out of that. First of all, we learned late last week that there was a leak, I believe, coming from this body of water that was due to some sort of fault in the lining that sits underneath this water, and they believe that could be that's what's causing the leak. And there has been water that has already gone into the bay. In fact, according to the Bradenton Herald, they reported that about 30 million gallons had gone into the bay so far. That particular pond, where I believe that they think that they have a leak, has about 500 million gallons, again, from the Bradenton Herald reporting, in that particular retention pond. And so some water has already gotten into the bay. There is a big danger that it could be more. Matt, phosphorus, you mentioned too much of a good thing can be bad. What kind of nutrient is it? Where do we see it elsewhere? Why is it helpful in our naturally occurring environment?
Right. So the purpose of the whole phosphate industry is to acquire good amounts of this material that then can be put into soils that are a lot more nutrient poor. And as a result, crops will grow, and a good portion of agriculture, both in the state. In fact, 70% of all the United States phosphorus comes from the state of Florida. And we are one of the major producers of this vital nutrient. And it is usually the reserves that are found sort of in the Four Corners region, where you have Hillsborough and Polk County kind of intersecting with Manatee and a couple others over there. That material gets cycled, and is, as far as I know, this waste product here has been around since the 1960s. And the problem with many of these things is that they get, once a company kind of uses it, they leave the waste product there, and then they go out of business. And as a result, it's a chain of custody that the original people who made the waste are no longer around to kind of take care of it at this point.
Interesting. JB, any more questions from viewers?
Yeah, we let's get to Michelle here in the Facebook Live comment section, saying #HeyJB. We all understand the negative effects of phosphates in our water. However, it sounds a little extreme to evacuate the entire area if the only concern is damage to the ecosystem. What exactly are they not saying here?
Now,
First and foremost, as a reminder for those just joining us in the last several minutes, a 2 o'clock press conference has been called, so maybe a lot of questions we're going to be getting answered here in less than half an hour from now. So stick around for the 2 o'clock press conference. But Evan, Michelle's comment here.
Yeah, that is important. Obviously, the 2 o'clock press conference, we hope to get answers to these questions. But I may be able to help on that one, Michelle. Part of what's at issue here is that, again, if you 500 million gallons in that pond, you notice as you're looking at the video here, it's at an elevated point. And so there are homes in the area that could literally have issues because of the amount of water that could come out of this pond. As I understand it from the Department of Environmental Protection, that's partially part of the reason why they're evacuating the surrounding area, which, as we reported this morning, includes about 15 to 20 homes. That was before the evacuation area was expanded and US 41 was shut off, where you just heard from Nico Clemens there. So that, I believe, answers your question, Michelle, that there might be actual issues from the water coming out of the pond in just that much water in and of itself, not that it is toxic.
We have another question coming in here. It's actually for our expert Matthew here, Taylor here in the Facebook Live comment section. #HeyMatthew. What happens to the fishing once water has gone into the bay? Is it safe for fishermen to consume fish, especially off the Skyway fishing piers? It's very worrisome to us who fish weekly or daily off of the pier. We do not want to eat fish that could poison us. What do we say here for Taylor's comment here, Matthew?
That is a fantastic question. The danger of having a sudden flux or sudden impulse of phosphorus into the Tampa Bay region is that it can get a red tide. And red tide is a toxic algae that would make it very difficult to eat the fish, potentially hazardous in that case. I don't know if that is specifically a possible consequence of this amount of phosphorus, but it is something that would have to be watched out for sort of in the weeks and months that follow this leakage of this fluid that's been sitting here at Piney Point.
And Taylor, sorry, Matt, let me just follow up with you on that. And JB, I don't know if you can get that comment back on the screen there.
Sure, I can. Yep.
But so, Matt, this again goes to what we were saying earlier. So it's not necessarily the fact that fish that Taylor and his family may be fishing for might consume some of this phosphate and that be poisonous. It would be more something like the phosphorus would get into the waterway, which would create a red tide, which the fish would then consume, and that could then be dangerous.
Exactly. So this water is non-toxic at any major level. I mean, it's something you wouldn't want to drink, something you wouldn't want to swim in, but at the same time, there are many. When you think of toxicity, this is not something you would normally consider, highly toxic. But the ecosystem effects, such as having toxic algal blooms that result from this process, would be the more long-term and sort of a consumer level issue with people who fish or things like that. Definitely much more concern there.
Okay, so I think that answers Taylor's question. So then right away, initially, no real concerns or problems with eating the fish, but you'd want to pay attention and stay tuned, obviously, because we could have red tide or algae blooms as a result of this water leaking into the waterways, and that could then cause later issues. But of course, that wouldn't be immediate, and hopefully you'd be still paying attention to the news, Taylor, so that you know that by then that would be bad to fish for them. JB?
Yeah, we got some more questions coming in. And again, as a reminder here, folks, just like Taylor did, you can use #HeyMatthew, #HeyJB, #HeyEvan as we answer your questions. We know that there's a lot of concern out there. There's a lot of people wondering exactly what is going on in Manatee County as emergency evacuations. Let's take another live look here. Emergency evacuations continue here in the area. A 2 o'clock press conference 20 minutes away. If you're joining us on WFLA's app, WFLA.com, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, we're going to roll right into that 2 o'clock press conference. So don't go anywhere. If there's one thing that I'm seeing here quite a bit here, Evan, is that there's a lot of frustration out there from people that have been saying that this is something that has been building up for some time, a lot of frustration, saying that this is something that could have been avoided years ago. You know, when I was listening to the press conference last night that took place 9 o'clock last night, I was at home. I was listening in, and you could just hear that this was necessary, that this is something that they've been seeking funding for some time, seeking state money here. So I think there's quite a bit of concern out there. We'll get to some of the comments like from here, Michael Swanson just a moment ago, hashtag Hey Matthew, why the delay in fixing the wastewater leak and fixing of this plant? Well, maybe we'll get Matthew here to comment on that here momentarily. Let's get to Brooke Liberty here. Thank you very much. Appreciate that as we're getting past some information. Oh, yeah, can you give me one second here really quickly? Brooke, hashtag Hey JB. They've known about this potential being an issue for over 20 years, and they've constantly pushed it to the back burner. So, Evan and Matthew, there's been a lot of frustration that this isn't something that's been handled sooner.
Yeah, Matthew, Matt, I don't know how long you've been in the area. Let me ask you now, actually. How long have you been here?
About 12 years.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I'll defer to you then, because, you know, JB and I have been here a couple of years each. And in the time that I've been here, obviously, we see so many concerns with our water in this area, both natural, marine ecosystems. When I first moved here was the summer of the red tide, and obviously that was a major concern for everyone. And I don't think anybody wants to return there, but we've got major water quality issues in Lake Okeechobee and in different waterways around the state, and it's obviously something that we need to pay very close attention to, being surrounded by water on three sides.
That is a good point. And the main issue with any of these things is just ownership. Who owns the problem? These things, the gyp stack was first began constructed, I believe, in the 1960s. The companies that had it have gone out of business, and I think it was last used in the 2000s, early 2000s, and it's just an issue of, does the state have ownership of this, or the public? I know it is actually own the land, and it's a big body of water that doesn't, for the most part, just sits there because it's got so much sort of in contact with this gyp stack, which is the byproduct of the phosphate industry. That's generally it's not terribly toxic, but still nothing you want to have introduced into your natural waterways. As a result, it's something that probably doesn't receive a lot of attention except when it fails. And it's failed a couple of times. I believe in a couple most recently was one of the hurricanes, or some of the we had some very heavy rain seasons that there's a lot of drainage that came off of it. So it is an issue, but that I can't tell you why it hasn't been addressed before then or anything of that sort. It's just one of those things that it is not seen until it's a squeaky wheel, I guess, at this point. Very bad squeaky wheel.
Those of you joining us here on WFLA Now, JB Buno, Evan Donovan joining you here, and we're getting in some new information. But again, Evan, this 2 o'clock press conference is going to be beginning here momentarily in about 15 minutes from now.
That's right. We're waiting for a 2 o'clock press conference. We're going to get an update from officials at the Piney Point gypsum stack. We did get an update earlier today, just to review for those of you who are just joining us or maybe just logging in here, that the wastewater collapse was imminent. The evacuation area expanded a little bit. One of the roads was closed down, US 41. In a larger area than previously was evacuated. So we are awaiting an update from officials, and we have Professor of Geosciences Matt Pasek from the University of South Florida with myself and JB here to answer your questions. If you have any questions for him or any questions about Piney Point in general, just make sure you use the hashtags HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan, or hashtag HeyMatt or Matthew.
We have some great comments coming in here. Sorry I was off camera there for just a second. We do have now Drone 8 in the air. Take a live look here. So looking here from our drone in the sky over Piney Point. Evan, I'm being told now this is about 1 mile away here. Again, the wastewater collapse said to be imminent by officials there at Piney Point, and this would be the view that we would want to see here from Manatee County. Again, this is live from Drone 8 in the sky right now.
And eerie a little bit to see US 41 there completely devoid of cars. Obviously, it has been blocked off, as we told you earlier. 8 on your sides.
We're getting
Clemens was down there.
Getting in some breaking news here, folks. Governor Ron DeSantis has ordered and declared a state of emergency for Manatee County to ensure that resources are allocated for necessary response and recovery. So this is now, of course, becoming a major concern at the state level. Again, Governor DeSantis declaring a state of emergency just seconds ago here in advance of that press conference with an update, and a very crucial update for folks in the Piney Point area coming your way at 2 o'clock. We'll have live coverage here on WFLA Now. Let's get to the next comment. That's a question that's coming in here, folks. It's an interesting one here. It's for you, Evan. Carrie Taylor Thompson here, hashtag Hey Evan. Would this mean that their homes have no value and the land would become like a nuclear area? What happened? What really, to sum up what Carrie's talking about here, is what the long-term impacts would be for residents here, short-term and long-term impacts. And perhaps that's a good question here for Matt as well.
So again, going back to the earlier comment that we had, I think it was Michelle who asked that question about what the danger is for nearby homes if the water itself is not toxic. And part of what I understood from the Department of Environmental Protection was that it was the amount of water that could flood nearby homes, or at least cause them some damage if it was to be released or to leak out or collapse from Piney Point with serious force. So that's part of the issue. In terms of long-term damage, that to me doesn't sound like it would lead to long-term damage or declines in home values, but I don't know that to be sure. I think we'll sort of defer here to Matt. Let's bring back in Matt Pasek, who's professor of geosciences at USF. I mean, Matt, if this water were to collapse from Piney Point and affect nearby homes, again, the water itself is not toxic. So are we talking what type of long-term issues are we talking about?
Right. So the water itself would not cause a problem. The houses would not be greatly influenced beyond the flooding, which is, of course, a very, very problematic issue. The only thing that might be a long-term issue if some of the material, the gypsum, the phosphogypsum that is sort of this thing is built on, were to kind of scatter and spread in any sort of sizable content. This stuff is not horrible as far as mine waste go, but mine waste in general is pretty bad, and this would be something that would be a concern for if that material were to spread out, getting carried along during the flooding event. Then, for all the gyp stacks that are around here, many of them are, you cannot build on them because of a number of, for one, they're not usually stable, and also they have a little bit of radioactivity to them as well. And that would be an issue that if this material were to spread there, that would be a long-term impact of these housing.
So wait, let me stop you there, Matt. So there are some radioactivity issues surrounding this water in gyp stacks?
The solid itself, yes, it doesn't get into the water. Most radioactive material just stays in the solid phase here. But if that solid were to transfer out into the were to be spread out, and you'd have to have a lot of it, then that would be an issue. And for instance, in some of these pictures you see here, that white material is the phosphogypsum that can cause, that is, the reason that it's been piled up is because we cannot figure out what to do with it because it is actually somewhat radioactive and could be problematic in that way. The water itself is not, though.
Interesting.
Folks, you're looking here live at Drone 8 in the sky, about a mile away from the gypsum stack, of course, that we're talking about here. Again, officials warning of an imminent wastewater collapse. And if you're just joining us, Governor Ron DeSantis ordering a state of emergency here in Manatee County, a 2 o'clock press conference where we're expecting a lot more information coming your way in about 12 minutes from now. I want to get to we've had a lot of comments come in about the jail there in Piney Point, the jail. John Forehand here, hashtag KJB, have they evacuated the Manatee County Jail? And our team here behind the scenes has been hard at work to get us some answers. And per Randy Warren with the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, they have placed sandbags around the jail. There has not been an evacuation due to the fact that they are at a higher point in the area. If they do have a need and water approaches the jail, they are going to be moving the inmates to a higher floor within the facility. So due to the topography there in Manatee County and them being at a little bit of a higher point, They do not believe at this time that the jail warrants an evacuation, but they are taking precautions, again, placing sandbags around that jail. We've had, Evan, a lot of comments come in here in the last several minutes about the jail itself because, again, folks can be told, residents can evacuate the area, but the inmates at the jail, of course, they don't have the ability to do so, so they are placing sandbags